We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And it's crazy to say, but this is our coverage for What If Season 3, which is the first time we've ever covered a Season 3 of something, which is cool, but also the last new Marvel content of the year. So, wrapping up 2024, wrapping up What If, because they've reiterated a time and time again, this is the final season. So this is a pretty big episode in terms of firsts and lasts and all that good stuff. But we've got some good stuff in store for you today, and hopefully What If has some good stuff in store for us for the rest of the year. Like always, I'm going to let Katie kick it off with our predictions, starting with what we think is, or what Marvel has said is episode 1.
Oh, well, I just want a quick ad before we go into episode 1 and the actual what we've seen so far for the next 8 episodes and the final 8 episodes. I have to say, I don't want to start the episode off by complaining, but I'm going to.
Oh, no.
If there's ever, listen, you're going to agree. We've talked about this. If there's ever a show you never needed to finish, it was this one.
Agreed, yes.
So I'm kind of upset they're finishing it. I'm kind of upset that they've decided that it's only going to be 3 seasons. Obviously, if you've listened to any of our reactions, episode to episode, or, overall reactions to What If Season 2, I had my complaints. I guess those continue into Season 3 because, as far as I'm concerned, the complaints from Season 2 are the reason we're ending it in Season 3. Instead of telling a bunch of random stories, they're trying to combine them, and now here we are. Fine. Again, I don't want to go into this complaining, but I am just going to put that out there. This show didn't need to end. I love it. I love the concept of it. It's literally endless. You have comic lines that are endless. You don't even have to follow the comics. You could go entirely off of the MCU. And it's still endless. The possibilities are endless. Is that not what they tell us in the actual marketing of What If? Yet you've put an end on the possibilities. So I just have to get that off my chest because I'm a little aggravated. I really like the show. So it's frustrating to say that we're already hitting the end of it. But without further ado, so that way I don't have to complain about this anymore as we go, let's get into what is supposed to be the first episode. Now, unlike last time, these have come out from Marvel.
Yeah.
So we are not going off of a possible leak. We are not going off of any of that.
Which, to be fair, the leak was actually accurate.
The leak
if I
was
remember
entirely
correctly,
accurate.
It was 100% 10 out of 10 right on.
Oh, yeah. We got very lucky, though, because
Yeah,
we based an entire episode off of a leak.
We did.
Because we didn't know what to go off of. So that being said, this is actually for sure what we are going to be seeing. The very first one is the Hulk fought the Mech Avengers. What if the Hulk fought the Mech Avengers? Question marks are going around my head right now.
Yes, so clearly one of us came to this more prepared than the other. I did do a little bit of I didn't go into the comic line, but I do just want to tell everyone if there is an interest in understanding what this could be referencing, there is a comic line called Avengers Mech Strike, where they are all basically wearing. Actually, I would liken it a lot to like the Power Rangers. They like wear the big suits. So Avengers Mech Strike kind of seems like it might be kind of the source material. How faithfully they stick to that, I'm not 100% sure. But that was just something I wanted to point out because I felt like that was too weirdly specific of a title to have it just be, someone's brainchild of, hey, I think we're gonna, make this the tweak. It actually may likely come from a comic run.
Is that the part where you see all the Avengers in like machines?
Yes, that's what I'm assuming.
That's also what I was assuming. And honestly, for those of you who might need another point of reference, I'm thinking of, oh, and now I'm not thinking of the name. Shoot. Pacific Rim.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
similar to that. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because like the actual comic cover itself is like everybody essentially in like Iron Man Hulkbuster armor. So it's like Iron Man Hulkbuster armor, painted Spider Man, painted Hulk, which it sounds like this is kind of going to be different from the comics, but maybe inspired by that line because it seems like in that one, the Hulk isn't necessarily the bad guy. But again, like I didn't really go into the actual line itself. I just kind of read the general summary because it seemed like one, I didn't want to spoil it for myself because I was like, I like What If to be a surprise, but I did want to see if there was something that like this is actually a real comic storyline that happened. And if it's what I think it is this mech strike thing. So if you do want to have it maybe spoiled for yourself, you can check that out, but it seems pretty interesting. And then they kind of like, based on the What If trailer, it seems like they're able to like combine it, which reminds me of the Power Rangers and how they all like bring their, individual spaceships together or whatever. I'm thinking SPD for any of y'all who were late 90s, early aughts babies, but they bring them all together and then they make one big super robot that is able to like fight. So definitely an interesting take. I think it could be cool. I like that Sam is the leader. From what we've seen in the trailers, that makes me super, super happy.
Yeah, I have complaints already.
Oh my God, girl.
Listen, I think it's fully because What If Season 2 PO'd me so bad. And I really think because we've only had a year, I've not really truly settled from it. But my first complaint is solely just based off the fact that okay, let me start with it's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm very happy that for once they brought all of phases 4 through where we are now characters in.
Yes.
Because that was a huge complaint for us last season that we still were not focusing very much on these new characters that by last year we've had for what, 2.5 years now?
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, are we ever going to pay attention to them? So I'm very glad we have them. However, I have to voice my tiny complaint in saying I'm a little upset that the first time Sam's Captain America is going to be saying Avengers Assembled is in What If and not in a live action, because that was a very epic moment that they saved for Steve Rogers. And so I'm a little upset that they aren't giving him the same grace and letting him have that really epic moment on screen as Anthony Mackie. So I'm a little upset by that. I know it's minor.
I think that's a fair push. I will say, and I just saw, I don't know if y'all have been keeping up with some of the releases around Brave New World, but there's a new kind of teaser that came out recently. And it seems like the actual plot of the film, or at least part of what is happening at the beginning, is Ross kind of enlists him to reassemble the Avengers. So, yes, you're right in that he's not going to get to say that iconic line in live action for the first time, but he's actually playing the Nick Fury role, it seems like, or at least that's Ross's intended role for him. So they're playing with it a little bit. I also think, it's going to be. We're in a different place with the Avengers, right? Like he has to reform a very broken team. So yes, I hear what you're saying, but I think based on what we're seeing now from the stuff coming out from Cap 4, I just think that maybe he's in a different, and the Avengers themselves are in a different place. So he has to do something that Steve Rogers never had to do or got to do, which is be the Nick Fury and be the guy who's actually bringing them together and actually assembling them, not just, oh, we're all here, I'm going to say the line.
No, that's totally fair. I just think it's just a little nitpicky thing. And I guess I should also just preface all of this by saying, because we always go through these and then we rate how much we wanted this episode and how much we didn't, I'm just going to let everybody know my ratings are going to be nasty.
Ooh.
Because if you're going to tell me this is the last season of this show, you better have saved the best for last. And I can already tell you, I don't feel that way.
That's fair.
So I just want to preface that as well, is that there's already quite a few on this list that I'm like, what? Okay. But yeah, that's like a nitpicky thing. I think regardless, it's going to be a really interesting episode. I'd love to know how the Hulk ends up fighting all these robot versioned Avengers, essentially. Like, I would love to know how we get here and where that what if moment is. So I'm looking forward to it. Do I think it was the most prominent and like something I had on a wish list moment? No. But I am looking forward to this episode.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, I'm going to take it and lead us off in episode 2, which is what if Agatha went to Hollywood? Look, I love Agatha. Obviously, we loved the show. What's the point? Like, what is going to happen in this episode and why should I care? I just don't really, like, this just seems silly for silly's sake. And I think for me, like, now I'm going to get a little critical. I enjoy the episodes most where they change something that has massive ramifications to how the universe turns out, right? I'm trying to think of a good one, but like even the idea of T'Challa being Star-Lord, like think about how all of that changed, how Thanos was so different because he is such a calming and wise figure and was able to like talk him down, and that changes the whole trajectory of the universe. Why does Agatha being a part of Hollywood in what looks like maybe the 60s, because we see Howard Stark, and I think if I'm going to take a guess, that's the same episode. Why do I care? Like, I just don't understand why this is important.
Yes, I echo that. And I think that's why I was like, hey, actually, I need to preface that, like, at least half of these, if not a little bit more than half, as in like 5/8, I'm like, why? Again, if you're going to culminate this show, you're now, and not even, if you're not just culminating the show as a whole, but again, look at that last trailer that dropped. The point is like some big crap supposed to hit the fan at the end of this. That is what they've shown us in seasons 1 and 2, but also because we are finishing an entire series at this point. So I'm to assume the stakes are, not even assume, you're telling me the stakes are high. Something crazy is going to be happening. And so I'm trying to understand where Agatha going to Hollywood fits into the fact that, you know, one of these episodes has the Earth getting destroyed. Like, things like that just doesn't really, I don't see them on a comparable level.
No, it's like very different levels of stakes. And so like it's fine if you're going to do all like low stake, just fun entertainment level ones. Okay, like maybe not what I would go for, but like I could be fine if they were all at that level. But to your point, to have things that seem really, really important or really drastically differ from what ended up playing out in the MCU, and then things like this, and then another one we'll get to in 2 episodes, I'm like, I just don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah, I think that it all goes back to don't be sitting here painting it one way, that this is going to be a huge, like, stakes are it, this is the end, which it is. But then you have us all sitting here like, but these are the episodes you chose.
Yeah.
If this is going to be it, these are the episodes you chose. It just seems a little strange to me. Now, maybe Agatha's going to go to Hollywood and do some crazy crap, and that somehow affects the larger storyline in whatever way it's going to. Fine. But this all goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show. This series didn't need to end, because if you had just chosen for it to not, we could have done silly, laughy little feel-good episodes throughout the seasons, and I wouldn't have cared. You could have me watching this in 20 years. I still won't care, because I'm like, cool, they're different every time. But like, you put the stakes there. Now I'm not sure how Agatha going to Hollywood's going to play into it, but here we are.
Yeah.
So in terms of like how much I'm looking forward to this episode / how much I wanted it, this was low. I also love Agatha. We just came off her show, loved her show. We were singing the graces of it. Catherine Hahn, my fave ever. But I don't think I needed this one.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, I'll take number 3, because this one I actually am looking forward to.
Really? I would have had
which shouldn't be
no
shocking.
idea.
Listen, nothing's better than his name in the title. But what if the Red Guardian stopped the Winter Soldier? I believe this is the one we got the hint at last year, like a week after we finished What If Season 2. They released a clip, and this was the clip. I'm a little unsure how he's stopping him because it does appear in the clip that they're working together. So I'm not super sure how that situation. But regardless, I said last year on Twitter and I was singing it from the graces. I'm very excited for this episode. I think it's also going to be a really nice precursor for the Thunderbolts because you already have these two also now interacting in that movie. And like we've also gotten a great little clip from that where like you see the two. What kind of super soldier serum did you get? Like I'm excited. And so I think having like another version of these two interacting is going to be hilarious. I will say on the grander scheme of things, I'm also like, I'm not quite sure how this is going to fit into things and whatever the season culminates into, but I at least know I'm going to sit there and like wholeheartedly enjoy this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be cool because I think for me at least, ever since Alexi was introduced and also Isaiah Bradley, the idea that we've had super soldiers since, the 40s, 50s, 60s, and we've only really focused on, the main two, obviously Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and then those that they had tried to create in the Winter Soldier program that we saw they put on ice and didn't really pan out the way they were hoping to that we saw in Civil War. These are two super soldiers that I would love to see or would have loved to have seen in a what if type scenario. Like, what would happen if they were more in the public view or more having interactions with Captain America or the Winter Soldier or things like this? Because to have these types of people on the board and to not be able to have them interact because you've kind of retconned them in does suck a little bit because you want to see these types of really intense battles that only enhanced individuals at this level can have. And so obviously, as far as we know, we're not getting Isaiah in this show, but we are going to get to see a little bit of him in Brave New World, not in his prime, but as he is now. But I am glad that we're getting to see Red Guardian, what looks like in his prime with the Winter Soldier in his prime, either working together or against one another and integrating him more into this history that he was very much on the sideline of, as far as the main continuity.
Yeah, I mean, I second that. I also want to bring up when this clip dropped last year, it was rumored that this was a continuation of the episode Bucky was in with the Avengers if they formed in like the 80s. Yeah, the one with Peter Quill.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure if that is true. That was rumor. That was kind of an assumption. So that being said, because, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm remembering this correctly. Bucky was still in the Winter Soldier program when he was enlisted essentially to be part of the Avengers that formed in the 80s to stop Peter. He was still technically fully under their control. He actually kind of went AWOL and ended up on his own. And I believe like the episode even ends with him like overlooking New York City or something of that nature because he escapes from the Winter Soldier program. So if it is a continuation of that, that'll be kind of interesting too, because I think last season was the first time we saw kind of part twos to certain episodes. And so it'd be kind of cool to see that continued as well.
For sure. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. So that will be cool if that does end up being like a mini sequel within the larger story arcs for sure. All right, I'm going to take on episode 4. It seems like I got a little bit of the short stick with a lot of these episodes. I'm kind of annoyed. I definitely like these even episodes are going to be a little rough, clearly. But I got what if Howard the Duck got hitched? Who cares? Like, I'm so sorry, but this is a character that has made maybe 2 cameos worth a total of 90 seconds in the MCU in the Guardians franchise. I have no cares whatsoever about Howard the Duck. I love Darcy, but I would rather see her in something much more meaningful than this. And I am just yeah, that's all I've got to say. Just like, who cares? This is a really annoying waste of an episode, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't know if I have much more to add to that. I know this is one of my, like, if we had to rank them, this one is actually the lowest because
yes, number 8.
Yeah, I'm not invested in this. Obviously, they set this up. I think this might have been set up in season 1 already. This weird, like, Darcy, Howard the Duck romance. Fine. It's what if. I'm not hurt by it. But again, and I honestly, guys, if you didn't raise the stakes here and make it that this was the final season, not even the full 9 episodes, it's 8 episodes. And we're getting some big final battle supposedly, like, and all this crap's hitting the fan. Also, there's like very clearly one on here that or one that is missing on this list that I think everybody assumed was going to be on the list. So like knowing this one made it but another one didn't kind of is aggravating to me.
Wait, what's the one that everybody assumed?
There was supposed to be what if the other one half snapped.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And now maybe that's the random little last episode that doesn't have a real title, but considering that's supposed to be a culminating episode, I'm going to assume that's not. But that's been rumored for like ever.
Well, yeah, because that's the like lowest hanging fruit.
Well, and even a couple weeks back, I was already seeing people talking about it. And now that the official list is out, I'm like, oh, hey, you're missing something.
Yeah, something glaring.
So I don't mean it to be that person, but like, you don't have the one that your fans have low-key been begging for because everybody wants to see it. I mean, I know I do. Almost all my faves got snapped. Like, I want to see what that society looked like other way and like what them being here and how that could have impacted things that happened. Like, I want to see that because obviously Tony's the one who ended up like solving all the problems. Well, who would have done it on the other hand? Like, so there's just so many interesting aspects to it.
Yeah.
But then you have Howard the Duck.
Yeah. A character who, again, 90 seconds in the main continuity. Why should I be invested?
And maybe it'll surprise us, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just like, meh.
Well, because I have gotten very lucky and I seemingly have gotten all the cool ones, I'm going to go to the one I'm very also excited about because it brings in characters that I've been waiting to see again for like 3 years. And that is what if the Emergence destroyed the Earth? For those of you who don't remember, the Emergence is when a Celestial is being born, aka this is tying us back to the Eternals. And if the Eternals did not stop the Celestial from being born. So I'm very excited about this because we are actually getting to see them. We have seen clips of them in the trailer. So I'm excited to have these characters come back. I do apologize. I've not seen confirmation who exactly may or may not be voicing their characters in What If.
Oh, yeah, I don't know either off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know, like, obviously, I know Sebastian's back. I know Elizabeth's back to play their respective characters and everything. I know that. But I'm not 100% sure, especially Eternal wise, like, what of those characters are being voiced by who. Regardless, I'm excited because I want to see the Eternals again. And I think this is a huge What If moment that they also highlight was primarily initially stopped because Thanos snapped half the planet away. So I'm very excited to kind of see what happens because from our knowledge, the Earth, well, it says it in the name, it literally gets destroyed.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think it might be one that doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on the overarching What If storyline, but I do think it's going to be one of those that you watch and you're like, wow, that was really cool because that change and the way that it played out in the main continuity versus this universe is really, really different. And that is a huge moment that unfortunately in our MCU up until this point, has really been kind of thrown under the rug. Obviously, again, going back to Brave New World and some of the new footage, we know that adamantium is going to be a huge driver. It's what's causing the conflicts that Captain America really has to fight. So finally, we're starting to acknowledge what happened in the Eternals in the main continuity. But in the meantime, I love that they're throwing us this little breadcrumb because I'm not going to lie, I had to Google what is the Emergence because it's been so long and we have not had enough ties to the Eternals that I even remembered what that term was.
I'm so sad you had to Google that. I mean,
It's
I
been
get it.
3
I get it.
years.
No, I mean, I get it. I live in Eternals Twitter space because there is just like a really strong group of us that just hold together and are like, but we loved it and we want more.
I loved the movie too, but I definitely don't live in that side of the internet.
Yeah, I do. So I guess like I don't really think twice about it. But yes, I am sad that you had to Google it, but I get it. I get it. I do think, to your point, I'm not sure how much it's going to impact the bigger What If story. I mean, I guess the whole point is like, I don't know. I can't even say what the whole point is because What If has brought in terms that have confused us that we haven't seen play out in the bigger MCU.
Yeah.
In regards to timelines and things like that. Like
what is it? Absolute Point?
It's Absolute Point. Well, we did have X-Men 97 reference that though. But we didn't have, what is it? Universe Destroyers. Like, we had
that whole concept
that
of
was
the second season, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, literally. I was gonna say the entire second season was based off of this. Yes. never really seen that come to fruition anywhere. And okay, granted, like we're not really in that place. I think the closest you could maybe argue is like Deadpool and Wolverine talking about anchor beings. Maybe a little bit of like a similarity if you really want to push for it.
Or like two sides of the same coin, like
Yeah,
the
that's what I was gonna say. Like they're not lined up exactly, but you can kind of see where they have their similarities. The anchor being dying, the universe ends up dying in the long run, but also then you have a universe destroyer that their literal description is to destroy the universe,
yeah.
whether intentionally or not. So I do think like they are very similar in concept, but that's kind of the closest we've gotten. So I guess I can't really go into the point. But if we are going to maybe see this into a bigger thing, well, if we're talking about a whole universe or a whole multiverse, maybe the Earth being destroyed, clearly, like that's not supposed to happen. So that could very much impact, I think, the larger storyline at the end of the day.
Well, and the last thing I want to say about this that I've kind of been thinking about is like, obviously, so many of our characters are based on Earth, but we do, and we have in the last few years, have a strong contingency of non Earth based characters that we have built out in terms of roster. So I actually think that it could be really interesting and quasi surprising to see what different names actually show up to either help evacuate the Earth. Like, I think I was actually reading a little bit of a description of the Eternals before this because I was like, I literally don't remember that movie at all. So, like, I at one point I think they were talking about evacuating the Earth and how can we get people out before Tiamat, emerges and does all of that. So what does that rescue effort look like? Is it almost like what they did in Sokovia, where they were trying to just get off as many people from the piece of rock that was separated? TBD. But I do want to point that out too. I think we're going to have some interesting characters outside of the Eternals coming in. And for the first time seeing the Eternals, unfortunately, this is only an animation, but for the first time seeing the Eternals interact with the wider universe, not just in little one liners about when Thor was a kid.
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of how much I want this episode, I really like it.
Yeah.
I think, especially, I think they're most impactful when you have them pretty much built off of a massive what if moment.
Yeah.
And this is it, right?
Yeah.
The entirety of the Eternals movie ended up being based off of the fact that they were trying to stop the emergence.
Yep.
So this is literally that what if moment. I think it's such a great idea. And again, I'm really just happy that we're going to see some type of connection to the Eternals again, even though it's been 3 years of silence, essentially. I'm glad they're still bringing them in. They're not completely being like, yeah, we're avoiding these characters. So I'm excited for this one.
Totally, 100%. This next one is not my least favorite, but it is definitely like I would say middle of the pack. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, okay, I'm just going to name it first before I dive into it, but it's What If 1872. That seems super random. However, we have done other period pieces in the past. We did like a 1600 something. We obviously, as you mentioned earlier, Kate, had the one from the 80s. So this isn't totally out of left field in terms of, seeing what the team could look like in different ages and things like that. But I was curious why 1872. Turns out, again, this is a comic run. And in that comic run, it is kind of Western focused, as you can probably guess. What's really popular in the 1890s? Well, Westerns. That's when a lot of those I feel like take place. But two interesting things here that I think are important to point out. One, knowing that it's the Western based episode, that means that Shang-Chi is in it because we see him in, the traditional cowboy outfit and all of that. So it'll be great to see him and also in a very different setting, obviously, than the modern day San Francisco that we saw him in or start his journey in his film. But then the other interesting thing, and TBD again, if this gets pulled from the comics or not, but the name of the town in which that comic takes place is actually called Timely. Why is that important? I don't know. Maybe a character called Victor Timely. So, even though we are clearly moving away from the Kang storyline, it is kind of interesting that if they choose to bring that in, we will have little breadcrumbs of Kang variants still living within things like What If. What does that mean? I don't really know because we don't know how What If impacts the larger MCU still. It really hasn't done too much from that perspective other than introduce characters who have then made it into live action. But I did want to point that out because apparently Kang and his variants aren't completely gone.
And now correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the person across from Shang-Chi here is Kate Bishop.
Honestly, I'll be super honest with you on this one. The scene is so quick. I honestly had no idea who it was. So I'm glad you said that to me because it was just like it flashed to her face for literally 2 seconds and I was like, I don't know who this is.
Oh, I'm pretty sure, and again, this is just the side of Twitter I run on, but I'm pretty sure that's Kate because that's what I was seeing people say.
I love
So that
that.
was the other reason I kind of was like, cool, like loving that vibe. Obviously, she's a great martial artist as well. So they fit very well together in that realm. How they're going to be in a Western, whatever. I'm not really, I don't know. I'm not going to try.
Yeah, the vibes are slightly different. We're
Yeah.
kind of like meshing some different, very classical like cinema genres, but sometimes that makes for like the most interesting blends. So go for it. Have at it.
Yeah, I'm not going to question it. I won't question it. I think you bring up some interesting points about Kang too. Obviously, and maybe I'm wrong, but some of this was being worked on with season 2, so at the time, there's a great chance that the Kang stuff wasn't completely written out yet.
Yep.
That being said, whether the connection makes sense or doesn't make sense, I don't know. Maybe there really won't be one. To your point, maybe they're not going to actually even bring up the town they're exactly in or anything of that nature. But we do know season 3 was pretty closely worked on along with season 2. If you think season 2 came out a year ago, well, a year and a half, 2 years, that puts us pretty close to where, things were happening and where we were still talking about Kang very prominently.
For sure.
I do have to say, this is episode 6. So if you think about the fact that theoretically, now we had a problem with this in season 2, so we'll see. But theoretically, this is starting to lead into your finale because of what especially 7 and 8 are kind of seen to be. Will this have bigger repercussions into the bigger story? Is I think the question I'm kind of asking. I'm all for if it is Kate and Shang-Chi being involved and being there. I don't know what else they actually are going to be doing in said storyline. That's very unclear as well. But this one's going to be kind of weird, I think, because it's going to have to toe that line of, are we going to see it start to set up what 7 and 8 are supposedly really going to do? Or are 7 and 8 going to live in essentially a catalyst of their own being? It's just going to be them. That's kind of what happened in season 2 a little bit.
Yeah, where they kind of came out of left field and tried to bring a bunch of stuff together that was very disparate. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, I'm excited to see if they're able to, knowing that they worked on them in parallel, if they were able to adjust some things based on audience feedback. Because I think we've seen Marvel actually make a lot of pivots in the last, I would say, probably 3 years based on the fact that the audience has been, I don't want to say more vocal, because I think it's always been a very vocal audience, but we've been more critical as an audience of the things that have come out over the last few years. I think nobody's surprised by that statement. But I think what's been interesting to watch is the way that Marvel has responded in almost real time to adjust future content to not necessarily bow to the audience, but at least give us more of what we want to see. And so I'm hopeful that, they were able to kind of take those pieces of feedback and apply them and make it a story that is kind of more in line with the audience's expectations.
Yeah, I also have kind of been able to see that, I think. And so hopefully after What If, and maybe that's why we didn't get season 3 until a year later, because maybe after What If season 2 and the feedback that I think a lot of people were giving, I don't think it was just us in a vacuum, because let's be honest, guys, sometimes our opinions are not that of the bigger world.
This is true.
I mean, there's quite a few things. Y'all just came off our Craven episode. People are ripping that movie to shreds. Now, am I saying it was the best movie to walk this earth? No, but that's also because I had to take a step out of it and be like, I'm just going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I am not even going to pretend this is genuinely Kraven the Hunter who fights Spider-Man. I am just going to enjoy this movie. So that being said, I enjoyed it for those reasons. If you go on the internet, most people are going to tell you otherwise, unless you're in the side of the internet I am, in which most women only went to go see one thing in that movie. And so, whatever. Regardless, our opinions can live in a vacuum. I don't think they did for season 2. I think we
Agreed.
actually had very similar complaints to a lot of people. So hopefully they took the time this past year and did some reanimating, re-editing, doing what they needed to do to make it not the same as they did in season 2, because I think season 2 really didn't work.
Yeah, agreed.
That being said, let's get into the final 2 episodes of this, because this is it, too. Again, reiterating, this is the end of this show. So episode 7 is What If the Watcher Disappeared? Now, this is where I think it's going to hurt our heads. This is where I think we're going to get angry, because we don't really manage the whole multiversal kind of aspect very well, let alone the fact that What If says very different stories than what the current MCU is telling us. That being said, I assume this is going to have to do with the fact that what appears to be 3 Watchers show up. The Beyonders, question mark, things like that. We've got these bigger cosmic beings. There's a lot of aspects to this that should be interesting. We also know the Watcher is there for Nexus events, events that cannot be changed. So if he disappears, what does that mean for the larger multiverse? I don't know. And also, who is bringing this man back?
I have so many questions, and honestly, like, I have blacked out all of the things relating to the multiverse. Like, you just said the word Nexus event and my body went into fight or flight mode, and I'm just really struggling. I don't know what to say. Like, I think it'll be interesting because I think for the first time we're going to actually maybe see what this means on a larger scale, right? I think because, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Stan not, and this is kind of random, but I promise it all comes together. Does Stan not talk to the Watchers at the end of one of the Guardians films? I think it was the first or second Guardians, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've seen them in live action. The reason I'm pointing this out is if you are going to make the show come to an end and you are losing the Watcher in this sense, is there a world where he then moves from the space between, because we've seen him in the space between universes. Does he move from the space between universes to be accessible in ours? We've never seen him interact, this particular Watcher, it seems like, interact with ours. It also, I want to remind you, this Watcher doesn't play by the rules of the Watcher, because what is he supposed to do? Watch, not interfere. We've now spent 2 seasons where he has helped our heroes interfere. So my question is this his punishment that the other Watchers are here now to reprimand him for breaking what seems like their most basic law, and we get a nastier Watcher in? Also TBD. Now, that was stream of consciousness, but I hope that was even remotely followable for all of you listening.
Well, and not to mention, this Watcher is the sole reason I've had to deal with Captain Carter the way I've had to deal with Captain Carter.
He does really, he's a big fan of hers.
For what reason? Unknown. Like, still unclear to me. I've had to deal with her this entire show. I know she's back. She's on the stupid poster. Like, I really, maybe he needed to disappear, because if he had just been doing his job, I wouldn't be dealing with her every single season. And here we are again, dealing with her again, because she's going to be in this. She's going to play a vital part again, because what else is new? So maybe he has to disappear. To go off of your thought process, though, maybe we get a new Watcher. I guess the questions kind of remain too, though. It's a little confusing, because if the point of it is like the multiverse, does he not watch over multiple universes? Therefore, why are there multiple Watchers?
Well, I guess to your point, like, are there multiple multiverses?
Well, and that was where I didn't really want to go. If I'm being honest.
Trust me, nobody's getting hives more than me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want to bring that up, but I think that was something we had discussed at some point or another, was the possibility of, are there multiple multiverses or like streams of the multiverse? Because if you think about it, not to get really into, Taylor looks like her brain's gonna explode. So not to get into this, because I know she's gonna be so mad. But like, if we're thinking about the tree, right? Isn't
This
the But that doesn't make
tree.
sense either, because he showed her the tree.
I forgot about
Because
the
I was
tree.
gonna say, I was like, oh, but like, what if he just watches over like one tree branch? So all of those that come off of it are his responsibility.
But
But
it's
he
all
literally
one
was
trunk.
like, here's the whole tree.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So that being said,
It's
we
all
have literally nothing
conflicting.
to add to this.
I have one thing to add. Get your ducks in a row. I'm tired of this. My head hurts. I was good at physics in high school. It makes sense. It's math. It's literally math. Now, granted, this was basic physics, but still, it's math. What are you doing? Just pick a rule and stick to it. Pick a representation and stick to it. I am like, honestly, for this reason, I'm ready for this show to end, because I'm tired of having the same conversation every season, and then they just keep making it more confusing because every season contradicts itself, and also the regular MCU, which also contradicts itself. We have like 6 different explanations, diagrams, names, terms. I am just like over it. I'm over it. I want it to make sense, and I'm tired.
Yeah, as someone who didn't take physics because I took AP environmental science, I can't even begin. I try to just make sense of this, but it is exhausting in its own way. Again, I'm going to go back to my main point from the beginning of if you would have just kept random episodes and you didn't culminate it. And now listen, I have no complaints about the first one. The first season brought arguably the scariest villain I've ever
Oh my
seen in my
God,
life
terrifying.
to the screen. Yeah. I think if they ever even thought up to do that in live action, make it R-rated and make me hide behind my hand.
It would be like Terminator level.
Yeah. And that is the level that he freaks me out. Ultron Vision, Vision Ultron, whatever you want to call him. I feel like they have some weird symbiotic name. Regardless, I like that. That worked. Whatever we did after that did not work. Regardless, again, I could live with one hero being plucked from the different stories to fight this one villain. The whole like this story, but then this story, and now we have universe destroyers, and now we have this, and now we have that. And I'm like, I don't really know how we're getting here, let alone the fact that now the Watcher is disappearing. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why there are multiple Watchers. I don't understand any of that.
I think it also doesn't help that like though that part of the comic, like it's not a part that I particularly even want to do research and spend my time. Like I still don't fully understand the concept of the Beyonder. I don't understand or the Beyonders. I don't understand the full concept of the Watchers. Like I don't and I don't want to know. Like I don't want to spend time turning my brain to mush to try to figure it out. Like and depending on how these two episodes shake out, we might need to like and before we get into the last episode, like is this gonna go what I hope Miles Morales is gonna do and like shift from animation to live action at the end and shift to 616? We don't actually know. Like is that the concept of what if I don't know. I'm at a loss for words and thoughts,
And let's talk about what if,
aka the 8th episode title.
Yes. What does that mean? Like, what does what if mean?
It means they ran out of creative title lengths or titles.
Well, but the show is called What If, so theoretically, we're going to get so freaking meta when I say this, guys.
Oh no.
But theoretically, hear me out. Obviously, they're all called What If, blah, 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 because they're built off the what if situation. But if the show itself is a noun as what if, it's literally saying, what if the show?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I like 100% am tracking to that point where my brain starts to be like, we are exiting this conversation, is where I try to think about like, what does that mean in practicality? Like, how is that actually applied to the plot of this episode slash the culmination to what we've been saying all episode, the culmination of this show? And that's where my brain doesn't even want to go there. Like, there is literally a mental block to preserve my sanity.
That's why I was explaining it that way, though, is that I knew the next step was something meta and on a level that I don't think anybody asked for.
No.
Because to decipher the title is to tell you that they're literally talking about the show itself. Theoretically, if that is what they're trying to say. So then when you do take it to the next level, you are sitting there and you're like, okay, now we have to decipher what this show is meaning. And to the question you kind of posed is it making a live action jump? Let's not forget, the point of this is it was showing us different what if situations in different universes because the possibilities are meant to be endless. We have, and I hate saying this, guys, honestly, this needs to become something. You got to hold us accountable for it. But we have Secret Wars coming up.
That's exactly where I was going.
These options where you can start to bring some of these characters in from the storylines we've seen because they could be one of the universes that crash into 616 and help to create Battle World. They could be part of that. So you have the potential to bring in some of these characters. Now, Lord, somebody hold me back because I swear I know exactly one of the characters they're going to bring to live action.
They've already
again.
done her. It's already been done. It's already been done.
But I don't care. I said this once before and I'll say it again. That woman has something on somebody at Marvel because she will not be let go. To save my life, this woman will not be let go. Regardless, if it means what it's going to mean, it does open those doors. Now, I think that's not a bad thing. In the long run, I don't think that's a bad thing. You can have context and you're not just being fully introduced cold to these other characters. Fine. And I think that would kind of make sense to why they're ending the show now instead of actually just continuing it like it could have been doing. Regardless, it's meta and it's gonna hurt our heads until and if we see it actually play out later on the big screen.
Oh my god, my brain just unlocked something even though we were trying so hard to block it. Okay. Guys, I truly I cannot wait until the multiverse saga is over. Like I am going to be like so excited when we go to something straightforward.
Especially because hopefully straightforward is going to be the mutants. Although, like, is that going to be straightforward? Because then we're going to do Days of Future Past.
But anyway, what I was saying is if we go to, or I was starting to say before I lose it, because like right on the edge of like going back into my subconscious, if what if is the what if moment, right? Like we always talk about, to your point, what if, and then it's like the moment that changes everything. If what if is the moment that changes everything, that means this is an inflection point, that whatever happens at the end of this episode is actually going to change everything. So perhaps we've never seen it actually affect 616 up until this point, because we've been trying, and some days better than others, trying to build up to something that would actually make it into live action and affect our characters the way that other things that we've seen actually properly in live action have done. If that's the case, I really like what you were saying about Secret Wars. Maybe we're actually watching the formation of Battle World, because if I'm remembering correctly, Battle World isn't just 616 and the Ultimates universe, it's all of these universes that had already had incursions. It was just that 616 and the Ultimates universe were the last two, and they were the final two universes to have that incursion. And then we go to Battle World, the story commences. If that's the case, and these universes that we have now already been introduced to are laying the foundation for Battle World, that's entirely possible, because we don't actually have any even beginnings of an understanding of when this takes place in the larger MCU. It is not given us any indication, because we're only visiting other universes, at what point this takes place. For all we know, this one could have taken place over the course of a couple of days, and two could be taking place between Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's entirely possible. And that something within this actually causes the chain reaction of incursions, or what we saw at MOM actually set off the chain reactions that we saw in What If. That's also a possibility, because we know that Doctor Strange started an incursion. So that's all I'm going to say, because I don't know if any of that actually makes sense, and it's just going to recede back into my subconscious now, but it came out to say hello, and that is my theory.
I'm not going to pretend that I processed that as you said it. I heard you. But honestly, either we've reached the point of the night, or they were just words. They were just words for me. I think you might have made sense.
I think there was some logic, and I can't promise that all of it was logical, because there was a lot of stream of consciousness, but there was some logical, like A plus B equals C, or 1 plus 1 equals 2 in there. There were some general conclusions drawn with facts and evidence.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Thank you.
I I honestly am at a loss, because again, I think it's between the time we've reached that point in the episode and at the night where I'm like, oh, my brain's going, but also like this is my least favorite topic. And I think it's gonna be interesting. The one thing I will say about What If is I'm glad that they've decided to release daily,
Yes.
because we only have to wait 8 days to get there. So I don't need to want to absolutely hit my head through a wall to be like, what does what if mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have to do it. So I'm glad that we aren't going to have to wait 8 weeks for that answer.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll be interesting if it's going to have the bigger ramifications we're kind of discussing it could, or if it's going to stay very much within this universe. I think that was a big question during season 2. Then the last scene of the entire show, or of the entire season, is them showing Yggdrasil. And so it's like, well, clearly we're being told there's ramifications, like there's a new owner in the house. So what does that mean? Where's Loki? Don't know. If he's going to show up anywhere, this is it, right? Like this is logically where he belongs. So I don't know. We haven't made really that big jump. I know you mentioned MOM and all of that. We haven't really made that big jump yet, if you think about it.
We need to connect the dots.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so close to Doomsday and Secret Wars, and so many different properties are talking about the multiverse, and this is one of the biggest. Like, its whole sole focus is the multiverse, and so why are we not, like, we're running out of time, essentially, is I guess what my thesis is here, to connect this to Loki, to MOM, to some of the pieces that the multiverse is their primary focus. Let's start building a foundation because we are well on this road and we've only got pieces of a foundation that are not actually mortared together. So let's get some mortar in between our bricks here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. So I think that being said, as I was kind of saying, we haven't really connected from animation to live action yet in any property.
Yeah.
There's been weird moments that could be similar. Obviously, animation has talked to animation. We saw that in X-Men 97. We've had reference to that. So I don't know as a whole what that exactly means if they're going to make the jump. I mean, even so, we talked about it with Into the Spider-Verse and that entire storyline. The hope is at Beyond the Spider-Verse, he comes into live action. That's what you're talking about with Miles. That actually hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So again, we haven't seen that happen, and we haven't seen the fact that the animation and the live action mediums are should or should not be talking to each other, which I think is what creates a lot of this issue, if you will, and why it seems to kind of be like, well, should we care? Should we not care? Should I be looking at what if in the vacuum of what if? Or should I be looking at what if in like this could affect the larger universe and multiverse and 616? Should I think that these could become part of Battle World? Or no, like, are these just random things? And I think that's why we end up having these discussions the way we do, because it's like, is it a vacuum of its own making? And should I just be enjoying the show for that reason? Or do I need to be thinking about what else comes from this? And they're painting these trailers as like something big's happening at the end of the show. And again, Loki talked to it, Loki affected it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna just continue having, to your point, circular conversations, and until we start to actually understand how the different mediums relate to one another. So it's kind of hard to, draw any conclusions at this point. Catch us in a little more than a week, and hopefully we can give you, a better picture of what we think might happen coming out of this based on how they choose to end this series. But right now, it's just too open ended. And quite frankly, they're too inconsistent with how much they want the stakes to apply to, the larger MCU. And so we just don't have enough to go on.
I agree.
And with that very sad note of we don't know, we are going to end our What If Season 3 predictions. We have a lot of great coverage coming out every episode as this goes on for the next week or so over the holidays. In the meantime, make sure that you are following on your podcast platform of choice if you are not already, checking out the website for the schedule, and also, if you would be so inclined, supporting the show through our Buy Me a Coffee, which is linked down below.
You guys can also follow us on all of our socials, which are also in the show notes down below. And for our What If coverage, we are going to do very similar to what we did last year. So we are going to do our daily kind of raw reactions, if you will, to the 8 days of What If. And then we will be doing a total reactions episode when they all finish and culminate. So keep up with us. They will be dropping our daily reactions on pretty much all of our socials, but easiest probably to get to them would be Instagram and TikTok, although TBD on how much longer TikTok exists, but that will be the easiest. You can also find us on YouTube Shorts. They will be dropping on there as well. So make sure you are there for the day-to-day reactions. And then again, we will be doing a reactions episode to all 8 episodes when they are done. That being said, we're very excited still, regardless of the fact that I know we had complaints already and we have concerns. We're very excited for What If Season 3 and the very end of this show. But before our What If reactions episode will drop, we will have one final episode of the year because our full reactions won't come out until the very first week of the new year, believe it or not. We will be doing our 2024 review and 2025 predictions and kind of like general talks abouts for the upcoming year. So that will come out. That will be our very last episode of the year. And then What If reactions will end up being our first one of 2025. Make sure you guys are keeping up with that, with all of the stuff coming out, keeping up with us and Marvel, as Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.